Good morning, and thanks for joining us live on Facebook now that Facebook is up and running again. It was touch and go there last night when we lost WhatsApp and Facebook for a short while. But we're back in the world of the living today, and we are joined by Ben Sellers and Nitin from Starberry. Good morning, chaps. How are you doing?
Hi, David. We're very good and great to be on the Kerfuffle show.
It's fantastic to have a panel with some of your agents as well that you've worked with. So I'm going to introduce Trevor Haynes from Cambridge Property Lettings, a self-confessed accidental agent, but quite a few years into it, is accidental no more, and now manages quite a few hundred properties and has a very established pedigree in the business. We have George Cobb, who looks like he's working for Starberry today, but I think he knows about product placement, so he's wearing all of their merch. Good morning, George.
Morning, David. Really nice to be here. Thanks very much for having me. Looking forward to it.
It's great to have you all. And today we're here to talk about Starberry, but specifically being a lead generation powerhouse. So whatever you knew about Starberry previously, you may know their fantastic websites that they do, but their capability to generate leads for agents online are just superb. So Ben and Nitin, I think I'm going to hand over to you initially to sort of introduce what do you think the biggest challenge for agents is right now when it comes to generating online inquiries? Has the online valuation tool had its day?
I think that it's just a tool, as you said. It can be a very useful tool somewhere in the journey. But if you're going to just dump someone in straight onto it, you're not going to get the answers you want. You know, you've got to tell your story. You've got to have stories. You've got to have your creative campaign in which it is, placed somewhere along that journey. So I think one of the reasons that we were delighted to invite Trevor and George to this call was both of them have, and their businesses have always embraced really going over and above the call of duty and not being absolutely never wanting to go down the sort of cliched estate agent route with my famous Lego houses and handshakes and keys, and that's job done and there's your instant valuation. They've actually thought about what it is that they're doing and the USPs for their own businesses. And together we've actually created some really valuable, engaging content that right as we speak is smashing it out of the park in terms of driving valuable leads. I hope that they can can support me on that one as well.
Another thing that we... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on, Nitin.
Yeah, another thing that I wanted to highlight over here is with the agents out there, especially our clients, when the market's doing really good, they're focused on their prime source of business, that is actually getting the sales done, getting the lettings done, etc. And that's not the point of time where they can actually devote enough time to creating content, working on strategy on the digital space. So that's where we come in, and we take that pain off their shoulders so that we work along with them to drive more leads. And that's what actually helps them as a support mechanism. So we are technically, their in-house, out-house, digital team, where we work along with our clients to get them the best results that they can while they focus on what they do best and leave what we do best to us.
So, I mean, I will ask both our agents on the panel this morning. I think that what Nitin has just said is entirely true. One of the challenges of being an estate agent in the modern world is that we have to wear more hats than George is wearing this morning, but we do. We have to be we have to be marketeers. We have to know what we're doing in terms of digital marketing. You still have to get down to brass tacks and be a good old-fashioned estate agent at the end of the day and talk to your clients and deliver a fantastic service. But with the multitude of hats that we have to wear, it becomes harder to deliver a rounded service that you would say is 10 out of 10 in every area. if you're lucky, sometimes you get to pick one and do that really well, and the others suffer. So I take it working with Starberry therefore has been an absolute blessing and music to your ears, George.
Yeah, I think your point around marketing is really important. So I had a career in marketing for about 15 years. I was lucky to work for some big corporates, but this has been one of the hardest marketing challenges. And the reason is because you're dealing with people's most valuable asset. And you've got to take that really seriously. And that requires you to think very carefully about how you're going to sell and therefore market this proposition and this asset. And you've got to do it well. You've got to do it to a really high standard. And therefore, it's about the whole mix. And yeah, we talk about lead generation and evaluation. But for me, one of the first things I did with Starberry, which was just awesome, and that's what they're all about, creating awesomeness, which I put on here. Right on. So it is the website, because that's where a lot of people are going to go. And that's one of the things that Starberry did so well for me, is they just created an awesome website. And that's a lot about the brief to them, and we'll talk more about getting the best out of your creative agency later, maybe. But for me, is you can drive people to the website, but it's not just about your valuation tool. What's the story you're telling? What's the content that you've got on there? And you're convincing not only potential buyers and tenants, but also your vendors and landlords that you are the best person or best agent to market their most precious asset.
Can I just compliment you on your website, both George and also the fellas at Starberry, in doing copious amounts of research, as I do for every webinar, hours and hours. But 5 minutes before the show started, I Googled you. And when you hit your landing page, it is very quickly, you become aware of the fact that this is not just another generic estate agent, as Ben says, with the pictures of a couple handing over the keys to the house or whatever it normally is. But this is almost like a family-run business that is focused on people within their communities, a local agent that can help people, and it's just got a lovely, warm, loving, sort of friendly vibe to it. Very unlike other estate agents' websites, if you don't mind me saying.
David, you've just made it all worth it. Thank you very much.
That's it from us today, folks. We'll catch up with you all next week. But I presume that's entirely by design in terms of the look and feel that you were looking for.
We were really clear. This is about 6 years ago, the collaboration with Starberry started, and I was very clear on the brief, and I've still got it. And the first slide said, if Apple and Airbnb were to design an estate agent's website, what would it look like? And at the time, that was a really nice blend of beautiful design and user interface. And Airbnb, and still to this day, they just had a lovely way of navigating around the system, and therefore Ben and Nitin and the guys just brought together this wonderful creative team, and we as agents, and not just agents, as a client, we have a really important responsibility to focus on the brief, because that's classic saying, you get out what you put in, and you've got to inspire these guys. You want them to feel excited and motivated. I want them drinking the Daniel Cobb Kool-Aid. Okay, and in order to do that, I've got to bring the energy to the party as well.
And I think that to give you credit, George, he didn't spend decades at some of the top ad agencies for nothing with obscene budgets. He came here with not so obscene budget, but a sensible one. But where he might not have had the budget, he put in so much effort with his team. And we always say it's a collaborative game, this. It's not just Starberry, go do it. It's actually, we need to connect. And I think we connected so well. We loved it. We all went over and above the call of duty. And I think the best moment for me was seeing George go up on stage at the Sunday Times, when it was still the Sunday Times Awards, to collect gold. And Peter Knight had told him the night before, no, you're not allowed. We're too oversubscribed. You're not allowed to have any suppliers joining the table because we've got too many agents that are part of the Property Academy that need to go. So George and I had this little ploy. And if you see the picture, we've got it knocking around. There's George with Matt Dawson, I think it was, George,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he's holding his mobile phone and I'm on FaceTime as George is collecting the gold award. But really, I mean, when I go on the site today, and I think we built that in 2015. Now, of course, we've iteratively changed it. And George reminds me of how many people copy it. We have seen some literal copies. But it was built to evolve, and it was built to contain thoughtful, creative campaigns, which we knew together we were going to do. So it really has been great and continues to be.
So, talking to Trevor now, maybe Trevor said something off camera before, which was a lovely moment between him and George, where he said that one of his briefs to Starberry was, "Give me what George has got. I'll have 2 of those."
You're muted, Trevor.
Let's
Sorry, we
unmute
got you
Trevor,
muted.
1 second.
It's back on again.
We started looking at website design, and I looked to see who had won the Sunday Times Award. So once I'd spotted George, I then realised there was something called Starberry. And interestingly, I went to an ALA conference and sat next to Miles Shiplake, who runs Rightmove, quizzed him, and he said, that's the man to go to. And so that's how we got involved with Starberry. But I think the point I would make is that we're very different because we're very small. We haven't got a George who's an expert, and the problem is multiple hats. So I've always said the secret in life is to know what you're not good at, which is why I employ lots of people to do everything. And so equally, that's why we have Starberry. So Starberry is in fact in-house, as it were, marketing team who reach all sorts of aspects for us. And I think that's essential for a small agency like us. But it starts, I think, with knowing who you are. You've got to know who you are, what you stand for. You know, when we're talking of leads, there are plenty of leads I don't want. But I need the few that really align with what we stand for. And I think that's the key. Because if you just try and do a scattergun, you just get too many leads, you don't know who you are, it's not what you want. So I think working out your values, working out what you stand for, and then building from that is where you start.
It's a really good starting point to sort of define your objectives, particularly. We touched on it earlier. You don't need to have a budget that is as big as some of the biggest names in our industry, because if deployed correctly and using a more modest budget correctly, it does allow you to go toe-to-toe with the big boys and deliver some real results. But I'm going to hand over to the guys at Starberry to explain how this works, because having a pretty website in itself isn't enough to generate leads. So how are you doing it, and how are you doing it in such a way that you're getting quality leads as opposed to stunts, which is easy to generate?
Yeah. So, one of the things that, especially working with George and Trevor, is that they are very open to new ideas. So whenever there's something new that we feel is, slowly picking up steam, we probably need to, start incorporating them into our whole marketing mix. They're usually the first ones to say, yes, let's give it a try. And that's the kind of trust that we've built over the years. And, vice versa, whenever they come across something, they really, pass it on to us. And then we try to make the best of what we could. Just to give you an example, George had a brilliant idea where George, is a very passionate army man himself. And he really wanted to have a campaign that talks about, hiring ex-army veterans, as handymen. And we felt that was something that was beautiful. We really don't need to milk it for leads, but that's a wonderful story that we really need to build around. And then we went ahead and did that. We did a couple of videos. We had changed the website a bit to reflect it, created a bit of content. And then the leads that come in who are from people who actually read those stories are the kind of people that George probably wants to interact with. Similarly with Trevor, recently, Trevor has given us the go ahead to start looking at videos, and we've been, trying out different stuff. So we're still very early to figure out what those, videos are that we can really work with. And it's the patience that our clients show when when we all aware that something new that we're trying out, it's an experiment. They don't come back to us in 24 hours saying, listen, it's 24 hours since the video is live, where are the leads? So it's all about that trust, and it allows us to really understand what the clients are looking for. Just like Trevor said, there's you can get junk. It's very easy. It's very easy to build on that. But to get you those quality leads, initially you have to wade through a lot of the junk to really find out where those gems are and what did you do that may attract those gems. And for us, it's all about continuously optimizing the campaigns, seeing what works best, and then just repeating it and then trying to do better. So we use multiple channels for that.
One of the interesting things you talk about videos is when we started looking at video, and I know that Ben's really strong on video, and we'd love to do a lot more, but there's capacity at our end. One of the surprises in lockdown was when we did a video on the comparisons between sourdough brioche and Cambridge property lettings.
I love that one, Trevor.
We got 19,000 views in about 3 weeks. And it just hit the mark. And I think sometimes it just needs a bit of imagination, and you need to think, what is it that people will stop and look at? Or what is the content they want to know about? Not what do we want to tell them?
I couldn't agree more with Trevor on that one. And Ben's been campaigning hard about videos for the last 4 or 5 years, Ben. And I'll admit I'm a bit of a late adopter, actually. I think, and with Trevor, it's about capacity. But that's where the collaboration's got to come in my experience with Starberry, is you've got to be prepared to carve out time in your diary and do the video. Trust yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. That army one you're talking about, it took me 20 takes to do that. But, I had a giggle to myself, at the end of it. And the guys just made it look fabulous at the end. But it's, you think about the Richard Branson 60-second elevator pitch. Forget it. It's the 15 seconds to 20 seconds. That's how we consume media right now. It's in bite-sized chunks. And if you haven't made that great first impression, like you do on a doorstep or on video in the first 2 seconds, then you've lost people. So I'm totally with you, Trevor. It's about imagination. It's about throwing yourself in there. And it's just doing it and doing it regularly. I can talk the talk. I'm not necessarily walking the walk. I don't mind admitting, but we're getting there.
Yeah, but the walk you have walked, George. I mean, the amount of times I've shown people a video. I mean, George came up with this idea a few years back. We're still campaigning it as we speak, which is locally grown. Now, Seth Godin, he's always talking, just own your local, just stay focused around your local element. Forget trying to take on the world. And if you think of those videos that you did do, George, they're from your mobile phone. Here I am outside Bob's Lobster, and you've got this great scene going on. I've shown it so many times. I've shown it on Rightmove webinars, all sorts. But it's real life. It's engaging. You meet the boss, one of the bosses of Daniel Cobb. You get some local, you get your 10% off a burger, and then at the end you dovetail in. And if you're interested in living in and around Bob's Lobster, it's so easily done. And literally, and you've just done a great campaign with, we're back and welcome back, and it was welcoming. And of course, all those people that George had put the time into, all the independents, who of course, by the way, big up Daniel Cobb, because they're bigging up each other. So it's really lovely. And it's not just talking about property the whole time. The sourdough, it's not property. And it's amazing how when you stop talking about property and you commit to doing something different, think different. That was one of my favorites, of course, from our Steve Jobs. And, that's what agents don't do enough of. So this is why Trevor's #1 in Cambridge in the lettings market, smashing it out of the park over all the big corporates. And George is never worried about all of the national brands. He's just worried about his culture, marrying his brand, his culture, his family values with some clear messaging. And actually, we've had a bloody good fun doing it.
We have. Yeah,
it's if you're having fun, I think that's half the journey, and everything else comes behind it.
Right. Well, I've taken up almost a full hour of these gentlemen's time, and I know they've got many more hats to wear yet today. So I want to thank George Cobb and Trevor Haynes for their time today and their input. And as ever, Nitin and Ben from Starberry. It's been really fascinating. Anybody that's interested in getting in touch with Starberry and to benefit from the sort of services that they provide, all their details are on Kerfuffle. I wish you all a wonderful week.
Thank you very much
Thank
to
you very
everyone for all your contributions. And thanks, David, for having us.
No problem. Always a pleasure. Take care, guys.
See you guys.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.